Hey guys, this video is about homeschool versus public school. Which one is better for you? Whether you're a student or a parent, you're probably wondering, what is the difference between homeschool and public school? Obviously they're very different. So fortunately, I have experience with both because I attended public school, I taught in public school, and now I've been teaching a group of homeschool students for over a year, and that has been a really fulfilling thing for me. This video is going to show you 6 pros of homeschool and only have five pros of public school. Later I'll make a video about the cons of each, but I felt like homeschool versus public school and just using the positive aspects would be a little bit easier to talk about. So I'm going to start with homeschooling. Number 1, with homeschooling, you get to go at your own pace. So if you're a parent and you're teaching algebra to your student and maybe they're struggling on a certain unit, well, in public school, they'd kind of be left behind. If you don't master a certain topic, the semester sort of marches on without you. But with homeschooling, you can say, hey, you know what? We were supposed to take 5 days on this particular lesson, but I think we actually need more like 8 or 9 days. And that's okay. You don't have a principal standing over you saying, why aren't you using a pacing guide? You don't have to worry about your team teacher saying, hey, why are you behind? We're way ahead of your class. In addition, if you just really like something, you get to spend more time with that particular thing. If you're doing a unit on short stories, you can teach more short stories, more things that you know are appropriate for your student. Or if you are the student, you could choose some things instead of just waiting on your public school teacher to just assign things to you. You get more of a choice. So you can spend more time pacing yourself. And really that's less stress. When you're less stressed, you often learn better. You get it. The second positive thing about homeschooling is there are less distractions. I can't tell you how many times I was teaching in the public school realm and I got interrupted by, Miss Brazold, can so-and-so come to the office? Hold on, guys. Oh, fire drill today? Oh, that's during a test. Great. Or just a lot of, hey! Quit looking at me! Your shoes are ugly! Probably the number one thing, the number one distractor in schools today is what? Oh, we have to learn? Now, I'm not saying that all distractions are bad. Sometimes they're a welcome thing, like if there's a pep rally and everyone's excited about that. But in a homeschooling situation, all of that extra noise is just cut out so you can focus on actually learning the content and not being embarrassed or distracted by little Johnny over here like doing weird things or people throwing things or just overall yelling, or boyfriends and girlfriends. Sometimes that's a thing too. It happens. But with homeschool, you just have less of that going on. So I think that's a positive thing. If there's less distractions, you can learn better. The third pro to homeschooling is the one-on-one aspect. Even if you're in a little homeschool group with 5 or 6 students, you're going to be able to give your student way more focus. You're going to be able to give your student way more attention than you could ever do in the classroom. So when I'm in the public school classroom, I've got maybe 20 to 30 students. That's a lot to handle. That's a lot going on. Whereas with homeschool, you can really zero in on what your particular, either your child or your student, whatever. You can zero in on what that person needs. Maybe they have some weaknesses in math. Maybe in public school, they don't have a lot of time to address those weaknesses. But in the homeschool environment, you can teach that curriculum and really sit down and say, hey, I see here you took a test. It looks like you're struggling here. Your reading comprehension's at 5th grade level. We want to get that up to 6th grade level, but without forcing you or making you take tests, let's really look at what can we do to let you learn in a really fun and enjoyable way, but still an effective way. There are so many teachers in public school who do give really special one-on-one attention to students if there is time. They would do like special conferences. They could call up a student to their desk and say, hey, let's look at your grades. Here's how you've performed on your last test. Here's the essay you've been writing and I want to go over it with you. And that's great when you have time to do that. But when there's 30 kids in your room and you have 4, 5, 6 classes, well, you see what I'm getting at here. So homeschool just means you've got one-on-one attention. If you can't teach a certain subject, say science, you can hire a science tutor to come and work with your student one-on-one. And so when you have that opportunity gives you more time to be at home, sit at that kitchen table or in your home office, or what if you had a home classroom? That would be amazing. You have more focus. All right, so the fourth pro for homeschooling is just the fact that you have more time for a niche activity. A niche activity might be crafting. In public school, you've got all the academic classes, you might have PE, you might have band, and that's a big deal for you. And then that's all you can really handle. If you're in a sport in public school, that's probably all you do other than class. You've got class, you stay after for practice, or band, you stay after for band, you're practicing marching band. And then it's like, okay, well, I want to go home and I want to design a video game. I want to learn how to crochet. I've got to practice piano. I want to learn 2 or 3 other languages. And I want to have a YouTube channel. Wrong. You can't do all of those things if you're a public school student. You can't handle all that and be super good at each individual thing. As long as parents allow this, or homeschool teachers allow this, students will have time to focus on something else that they really want to do. For example, I have cousins who not only are homeschool students and they do their academic work, but they also have time to go out and study nature in the park or learn how to do crafts. And of course, they can all play a musical instrument, and they're not pressured to quit all those extra tasks and do what's popular, because as a homeschool kid, you've got that time and energy and focus. You're not sitting down in a classroom for 8 hours a day, jostling people in those crowded hallways. You're just at home. You probably slept in, had a good breakfast, and now you've done your work. And now it's like there's just simply more freedom to do those things. Like, think of those Olympic athletes or other athletes. There's more than athletes, I promise. There's more people out there that are good at other things besides sports, but we tend to think of sports all the time. But that's my example. Think about it. If someone is astronomically good at sports, they were probably homeschooled. If you're spending 8 hours a day, 5 days a week in the public school system, it's going to be really difficult for you to be a mastermind at any other particular thing. Or let's say you just want to learn how to, like cook Korean food. Most schools don't offer a class on cooking Korean food. You might do a little unit on that in your home ec class or something. But if you really want to get good at something kind of different, homeschool allows you that time. It just simply does. There's more time. You can sit down and plan and gather information without fearing. A little dramatic, but still. The fifth pro of being a homeschool student is it's just easier to be yourself. If you're being taught by one parent or maybe just a homeschool teacher who's come to your house, you might have 2 or 3 other peers with you who are your siblings, and let's face it, you're probably not ever embarrassed in front of your siblings. A lot of times in public school, I noticed that there were kids who were really talented and could have been outspoken, but they were a bit shy because there were so many other peers around them, potential judges. A lot of people who have that introverted personality, it's very hard for them to shine and stand out in a room full of 30 kids who are loud and sometimes disruptive, or kids who have needs. There's just a lot of needs going on. But in the homeschool world, students they're less self-conscious. They get to really do what they like, and as long as the parent is allowing it, they're allowed to express their thoughts and opinions without other kids sort of giving them a hard time or kind of trying to embarrass them or even challenging them, which actually sometimes it's a good thing to be challenged by those other peers. But in a homeschool world, you sort of learn to come up with your own thoughts and ideas instead of just mirroring the other kids in the classroom. Public school sort of teaches kids how to act or how they think they should act. And I would know, I was one of those kids. But I think in many ways that can hold students back from being who they really could be. Okay, so the sixth and last pro to homeschooling is the fact that, and actually this could probably be sometimes a con, but there is so much parental power. Parents are the supreme ruler unless they have other teachers that they've hired in. Like the students that I teach, their parent actually has a couple other teachers that get to come in and teach them After I finish teaching my ELA classes to these students, they get to have a Mandarin teacher and they get to have a math and science teacher. But ultimately, the parent has control. Parents get to choose what type of curriculum they think would be best for their sons and daughters. They really ultimately pick the learning techniques. A lot of the things that I get to teach are up to me. One of the things I do is I've used a curriculum called Michael Clay Thompson. Very, very content heavy, but I get to pick the types of quizzes we do, the learning activities we do, the tests, the vocabulary. There's so much there, and I pick what I think is most relevant for them to learn. So there's sort of that mixture of parents getting to choose these things. Whereas public school, there's national and state requirements that have to be taught. And then sometimes you leave public school thinking, how do I balance a checkbook? I never learned how to change a tire. I never really learned what the stock market does. Or what's coding? Like, is that like computer language? I don't know what that is. We just had typing and now they don't even do that anymore in school. So now let's talk about the 5 pros of public school. And by the way, guys, these are not in any particular order. They're just things that I came up with and wrote down on a list. One pro to being in public school, whether as a teacher or as a student, is the fact that you have so many different opinions and diverse personalities. We all live in the real world. Sometimes we wish we had our own make-believe world, but in the real world, people are different. People are diverse. They come from different backgrounds, different cultures, different values when it comes to learning. And of course, depending on where you live, you might be from a more homogenous area, or maybe you're from an area where people are not only racially diverse, but their beliefs and the way they eat and the way they talk, everything is different. And so that's really good for a student in public school because they're growing up as a young person already seeing things being different. They're already seeing like warfare with opinions and different teaching styles and things that we really can't control in the real world. You can guard your child only for so long, but after a while, they are going to have to be in a working environment, or even if they're just Zooming online. Not only are students different, but teachers. Sometimes teachers talk a little too much and they like to state or maybe like imply their political values, and in public school you're just like, oh, okay, you just absorb a lot of that. So I grew up in a very conservative community, but even so, you still had teachers who like to express their opinions and talk about different things that maybe you wouldn't really learn in your little homeschool environment. You're also going to have peers who like different things than you. Maybe in homeschool group, everybody's kind of into the same types of crafts or video games or musical instruments or foreign languages, or maybe they're your siblings, so you're especially in that same environment. But when you're in public school, you've got all different kinds of people, and you get the opportunity to learn how to be partners with these people and deal with their differing opinions and academic levels, and you're kind of thrown into that. Sometimes it's really beneficial. You're not guarded from people just because they're different. You're just right there immersed with them. Another pro about public school is the school spirit. Now, okay, not everybody loves school spirit, but I got to cheer. I ran track. I was really involved in my school, and I loved our pep rallies. I liked being a part of something, even if sometimes pep rallies were just there to like get loud, get silly, get out of class, and maybe have early dismissal. It was just fun to like have something else. When you're in public school, you are a part of something bigger than you. My high school had about 900 to 1,000 students, but a lot of the schools around here have thousands more, like 2, 3, 4,000. And so when you get all those kids together in one room or in one gym, if the gym can hold everybody in there, you've got a marching band playing, you've got kids wearing the school colors, you've got people cheering, you've got all this stuff going on, and sometimes it's just exciting. And for some people, that will be the best time of their life. Not everybody, just for some people. So with school spirit, you can be a student in school and not really have to participate. But in my opinion, I think that was one of the major benefits of being in public school. The Friday night football games, being a part of the track team, running with friends on the track team, being out on the track and looking up and seeing my parents and my friends' parents out there like cheering and yelling. If your school encourages this, school spirit sort of binds everybody together, at least for 4 years in high school and all those years before in elementary and middle. So with that said, a third pro of being in the public school system is the fact that you're really tied in with the community, especially if you're in a small town, or even if you're not in a small town. If you've got some type of football rivalry going on with the high school down the street, that's always like really exciting, especially for teenagers. Once you get old enough and you can drive, you learn that certain local businesses will support you, and they'll you get coupons to places. Later on down the road, you meet people and they say, oh, you went to such and such, I went there, oh yeah, you have that connection. Whereas of course with homeschool, it's I don't really think about those things or worry about those things, because with homeschool you're so focused. So public school gives you that opportunity to be maybe more involved with the community, with a group of people. Community members would go out and watch your games sometimes. And I know, there I go again with sports. It's not always about sports. But even this summer, I noticed while I was driving around town, I could see different neighborhoods and apartment buildings and even businesses saying congrats to our class of 2020, supporting them, especially since those kids had to stay home. They couldn't have their traditional end of the year senior fun stuff or a normal graduation at their school in May. If you're a part of a public school, your community knows where you go. They know who you are. They probably recognize you by your school colors or your mascot. The fourth pro to being in public school is immunity. Yes, I know, immunity. So I attended an elementary school that was an old high school building, and this building was pretty darn old. So old, they had this big wooden stage with an RC cola dispenser, and it was only 50 cents. And I loved staying after school and buying cans of RC cola for 50 cents. That was so cheap even for back then. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah. Kids who are in public school are exposed to all kinds of other kids who bring in all kinds of germs, and it's pretty normal to get in there. You get sick maybe a few times in elementary school. I remember chickenpox. Everybody in my homeroom got it. I remember getting a cold once or twice a year. Everybody got it. And then pretty much by middle school, I hardly ever missed school. I've noticed immunity, you build up immunity simply because you're around people all the time. And especially these days, people are going to be way more serious about hand washing, hand sanitizer, keeping their kids home when they're sick. The whole immunity thing, I'm sure there are factual bits of information out there, but I just think that with homeschool, you're in a nice, safe little bubble, which means you probably didn't get the chance to build up some immunity. Whereas when you're around a whole bunch of kids all the time, it's going to happen. You're going to get sick. You're going to recover your body. Hopefully, if you have good health, you'll be able to recover and build immunity. Now, that doesn't mean homeschool students can't build immunity. You can. It just depends on who you're with, what other types of extracurricular groups you're hanging out with or playing with, whatever. So yeah, immunity is definitely a pro to public school. All right, you're probably thinking it. Probably the most important thing about being in public school, the fifth and final pro to public school is friends. There's so many friends. You're put together with people in a homeroom and you have class with these people. Public school gives you a chance to just meet more people. You've got more friends because you have several classes. You might be on the yearbook staff. You might be on some sports team where you get to meet people that you don't necessarily have class with, but you're on a team with them, therefore you just bond over that. Sometimes you get to be friends with people in different grade levels, or kids who were, at first you weren't really sure about them, but then you decide, I like so-and-so for some reason. In homeschool, you're probably only going to be friends with just a few people, your siblings plus maybe some other people in your homeschool co-op, and maybe that's all you need. But public school just gives you a more diverse array of friends. There's more people to choose from. There's more people to sort of choose you as a friend. You get just more exposure to friends. In public school, it's easier to pick and choose friends because there's just more of them. There's just more people to hang out with, play with, be on a team with, study with, whatever. So that's it, guys. The 6 pros and the 5 pros. When it comes to homeschool versus public school, there are so many pros, probably more than I could even think of. Be sure to tune into my next video where I talk about the cons of both homeschool and public school. This is going to help you guys decide what's really best for me, my child, my student. So with this said, if you guys have other ideas or opinions about homeschool versus public school, please leave a comment below, and don't forget to like this video. I'm going to keep making more. So guys, thanks for listening.